Hey everyone, and welcome back. I am so excited we got to share another week together. And I'm really excited because today we've got a super cool new scavenger hunt to share with you guys. But before I tell you all about it, let's talk about our riddle. Our riddle today makes me laugh. I think it is so funny and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Today's riddle is, you see a boat, but there's not a single person on board. Why is that? Guess you got to think about it. As always, at the end of our video, after we read a little bit from our James and the Giant Peach chapter book, we will go over the answer to this riddle together. So make sure to stay tuned and see what the answer is. Now, let's go talk about our scavenger hunt. Are you guys excited to hear about today's scavenger hunt? Because I'm excited to tell you, I think this week's scavenger hunt is probably one of the best hunts we've planned yet. It is something that you can play with anyone, anywhere. Oh yes. In the time of social distancing and when we can't hang out with our friends as much as we'd like to because we've got to stay safe, we have to adapt. So we're doing FaceTimes, we're doing Zoom calls, whatever we can to stay in contact with the folks we love and appreciate. And this week, our scavenger hunt is going to embrace that. So what are we doing? We are going to be doing a video call scavenger hunt. Oh yes. I am so excited to share it with you guys. I think it's going to be a blast, and you can play this with as many people as you can FaceTime or Zoom or Skype. So I'm really excited. Stay tuned and I'll show you exactly what it looks like. Check it out for yourself in the links below. I hope you guys are excited for this week's video chat scavenger hunt. So this week's scavenger hunt comes with a few instructions just to ensure we know exactly what we're doing. So what you are going to need is 2 to 5 players and somewhere to video chat like Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, like we already talked about. Now, how do you play? Each player will need a copy of the scavenger hunt list, and you're going to take turns finding items in your home that fit the categories listed. Share about what they mean to you with your friends. Players can also share one of each item or an item for each category. Alternatively or differently, players in a large group can each be assigned one item to share. So let's look at some of the things we can find on our scavenger hunt this week. So as you guys can see, there are different things from shapes, books, tools, toys, nature, and animals. There is so much stuff. There's colors, there's things that are your favorite, different textures, things that are just fun, things that are entertaining, hobbies that you have. All these things are about you and your friends. Just hanging out, having a good time, and catching up, and staying safe. So, I wish you guys good luck. Now, it's time for our positive action. For our positive action today, guys, we are going to be focusing in on yet another big feeling or emotion. Now, we've covered things like anger and love, fear and jealousy. We've also covered things like worry. And today we will be talking about loneliness. Loneliness is a pretty bummer feeling, right? It's not a great place to be in. And when that feeling comes knocking up there in that noggin, it can be hard to get out of it. It's a difficult headspace to deal with. Loneliness seeks to keep you alone. It doesn't want you to branch out and see people. It wants you to feel isolated. But guess what? There are ways we can combat this. So listen up. Some ways we can combat loneliness are reaching out for help. Reaching out. Even if you feel like no one wants to hang out with you, no one wants to be around you, that is absolutely false. You are fantastic and bring a bunch of unique things to the table. Don't get so down on yourself. Reach out and I'm sure someone will want to hang out, whether it be family, friends, whoever. Just make sure you're being safe and following social distancing. Now, what are some other ways we can deal with loneliness? When we're lonely, there's this really great example that comes to mind. Think of an airport. There's times when you're leaving to go catch a flight and see someone, and there's times when you catch a flight to go back home and kind of just chill out. When you're leaving people, it's kind of a bummer. It's sad and it's really easy to feel lonely. But remember that feeling of coming home. Remember that feeling of people being so excited and happy to see you, because guess what? You are fantastic and people are excited to see you. All right, now that we've talked just a bit about loneliness, let's get on to reading. What time is it? It's time to read our book, James and the Giant Peach. And guys, I am so stinking excited because things are getting absolutely out of hand, like super next level crazy. So if you haven't seen us reading the book, if you haven't been following along, please go check it out. Start from the beginning, read the story along with us, because I don't want to spoil this for you. But James, if you guys remember, just snuck into the Giant Peach, and guess who's inside? Giant bugs. But they're not scary bugs. They are kind bugs that are there to help James, but we don't know too much about them just yet. So let's hop right back into our story and see what we can find out. All right, so we're on part 12. Let's jump right back in. James decided that this was most certainly not a time to be disagreeable. So he crossed the room to where the centipede was sitting and knelt down beside him. "Thank you so much," the centipede said. "You are very kind." "You have a lot of boots," James murmured. "I have a lot of legs," the centipede answered proudly. "And I've got a lot of feet, 100 to be exact." "Oh, there he goes again," the earthworm cried, speaking for the first time. "He simply cannot stop telling lies about his legs. He doesn't have anything like 100 of them. He's only got 42. The trouble is that most people don't bother to count them. They just take his word. And anyway, there's nothing marvelous, you know, centipede, about having a lot of legs." "Oh, poor fellow," the centipede said, whispering in James's ear. "He's blind. He can't see how splendid I look." "In my opinion," the earthworm said, "the really marvelous thing is to have no legs at all and to be able to walk just the same." "You call that walking?" cried the centipede. "You're a slitherer, that's what you are. You just slither along." "I glide," the earthworm said primly. "You are a slimy beast," answered the centipede. "I am not a slimy beast," the earthworm said. "I am a useful and much-loved creature. Ask any gardener you like." "And as for you, I am a pest," the centipede announced, grinning broadly and looking round the room for approval. "He is so proud of that," said Ladybird, smiling at James, "though, for the life of me, I cannot understand why." "I am the only pest in the room," cried the centipede, still grinning away, "unless you count old green grasshopper over there, but he's long past it now. He's too old to be a pest anymore." The old green grasshopper turned his huge black eyes upon the centipede and gave him a withering look. "Young fellow," he said, speaking in a deep, slow, scornful voice, "I have never been a pest in my life. I'm a musician." "Hear, hear," said Ladybird. "James," the centipede said. "Your name is James, isn't it?" "Yes." "Well, James, have you ever in your life seen such a marvelous, colossal centipede as me?" "I most certainly have not," James answered. "How on earth did you get to be like that?" "Very peculiar," the centipede said. "Very, very peculiar indeed. Let me tell you what happened. I was messing about in the garden under the old peach tree, and suddenly a funny little green thing came wriggling past my nose. Bright green it was, and extraordinarily beautiful. And it looked like some kind of tiny stone or crystal. Let me show you guys the picture before I turn the page. "Oh, but I know what it was," cried James. "It happened to me too," said the ladybird. "And me," Miss Spider said. Suddenly there were little green things everywhere. The soil was full of them. "I actually swallowed one," the earthworm declared proudly. "So did I," Ladybird said. "I swallowed 3, the centipede cried, "but who's telling this story anyways? Don't interrupt." "It's too late to tell stories now," the old grasshopper announced. "It's time to go to sleep." I refuse to sleep in my boots, the centipede cried. How many more of them are there to come off? I think I've done about 20 so far, James told him. Then that leaves 80 to go, the centipede said. 22, not 80, shrieked the earthworm. He's lying again. The centipede roared with laughter. Stop pulling the earthworm's leg, said Ladybird. This sent the centipede into hysterics. Pulling his leg, he cried, wiggling with glee and pointing at the earthworm. Which leg am I pulling? You tell me that. James decided that he rather liked the centipede. He was obviously a rascal, but what a change it was to hear somebody laughing every once in a while. He had never heard Aunt Sponge or Aunt Spiker laughing aloud, in all the time he had been with them. We really must get some sleep, the old green grasshopper said. We've got a tough day ahead of us tomorrow, so would you be kind enough, Miss Spider, to make us some beds? Part 13. A few minutes later, Miss Spider had made the first bed. It was hanging from the ceiling, suspended by a rope of threads at either end, so it actually looked more like a hammock than a bed, but it was magnificently fair, and the stuff that was made of it shimmered like silk in the pale light. I do hope you'll find it comfortable, Miss Spider said to the old green grasshopper. I made it as soft and silky as I possibly could. I spun it with gossamer. That's much better quality thread than the one I use for my own web. Thank you so much, my dear lady, the old grasshopper said, climbing into the hammock. Ah, this is just what I needed. Good night, everybody. Good night. Then Miss Spider spun the hammock and the ladybird got in. After that, she spun a long one for the centipede and an even longer one for the earthworm. How do you like your bed? She said to me when it came James's turn. Soft or hard? I like soft, thank you very much, James answered. Oh, for goodness sakes, stop staring around the room and get off my boots, the centipede said. You and I are never going to get any sleep at this rate, and I kindly line them up neatly in pairs as you take them off. Don't just throw them all over your shoulder. James worked away frantically on the centipede's boots. Each one had laces that had to be untied and loosened before they could be pulled off. And to make matters worse, all the laces were tied up in the most terribly complicated knots that had to be unpicked with fingernails. It was just awful. It took 2 hours, and by the time James had pulled off the last boot, all lined up them in a row on the floor, 22 pairs altogether, the centipede was fast asleep. Wake up, centipede, whispered James, giving him a gentle dig in the stomach. It's time for bed. Thank you, my dear child, Centipede said, opening his eyes. Then he got down off the sofa and walked across the room and crawled into his hammock. James got into his own hammock, and oh, how soft and comfortable it was compared to the bare, hard floor boards of his aunt's, and it always made him sleep upon at home. Lights out, said the centipede drowsily. Nothing happened. Turn out the light, he called, raising his voice. James glanced around the room, wondering which of the other ones he might be talking to. The old green grasshopper was snoring loudly through his nose. Ladybird was making whistling noise as she breathed, and the earthworm was coiled up like a spring at the end of a hammock, wheezing and blowing through his open mouth. As for Miss Spider, she made a lovely web for herself across in the corner of the room. James could see her crouching right in the center of it, mumbling softly in her dreams. All right, that is where we will stop for now, put our bookmark in, and pick up next time. Now, it's time to solve our riddle. If you guys remember, our riddle was, you see a boat, but there's not a single person on board. Why is that? Did you figure it out? Do you know the answer? If not, no worries. I'm here to help out. I've got the answer right up here. All right, are you ready for the answer? The answer is because they were all married. Get it? So there wasn't a single person on the boat. The boat was full. They were just all married. A play on words. I hope you guys appreciated this riddle, and I hope to see you guys next week. Thanks so much for watching.